Souls games are beloved by millions across the world, and yet they are deemed as difficult and unrelenting games that show no mercy to the player. So how come Souls games are so appealing? Now of course these games are well made, and don't get me wrong, some of the best games to have ever come out. But in order to understand what makes someone want to keep coming back over and over again, time after time, is actually quite interesting. Let's take for example Elden Ring. In the span of the 8 months that the game was released, it has sold just under 17 million copies worldwide. So far this year, there just hasn't been a game like it. Maybe God of War Ragnarok will steal that throne, but that's a video for another day. With Elden Ring's outstanding success, we must understand 3 main points that make Souls games strangely comforting. This idea of constantly suffering for a goal that seems impossible to reach is engaging to the player. In fact, there is a term for this, and it's called Intrinsic Motivation. Huh? What even is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I did not even ask. Intrinsic motivation is the doing of an activity for its inherent satisfaction rather than for some separable consequence. When one is intrinsically motivated, they are moved to act for the fun of the challenge. Some of the most fun I've had playing video games was defeating bosses in Souls games. Being able to finally triumph after failing multiple times before. The pure perseverance many have when playing these games just goes to show how much thought went into making them. When fighting the first mandatory boss of the game, Margit the Fellowman, players were given a reality check, a wake-up call to the true difficulty of the game. Many had to come back later, more equipped to defeat the boss, while others took to the challenge. No matter which player you were. Anyways, everyone had the same goal in mind, to see the beautiful words strike across their screen, enemy felled. In video games, dying is taken very seriously. Whether you're trying to clutch a round of Valorant or trying to get the nuke in Modern Warfare, death is a big part of that. It can mean winning or losing. In Souls games, right from the beginning, you see yourself dying. Think back to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In that game you get struck down by Genichiro Ashina right from the get-go. In Bloodborne you are mauled to death by a starving werewolf. FromSoftware creates a situation where death is no longer a loss, but simply a mere part of the experience. Dying over and over again, yes, may be tedious at times, but is there to teach the player a valuable lesson. Every boss or normal enemy is designed to educate the player on a game mechanic. Now, whether the player takes 1 try or 100 tries lies all on skill and a little sprinkle of luck here and there. Yes, that was me fighting Melania after days of trying. You get the point. So little recap so far. FromSoftware shoves this idea that death is not a loss, but just a part of the game. But of course, you don't want a game to be impossible for anyone to complete. And you also don't want a game that is so hard that only 1% of players can even beat it. FromSoftware knows this, and so they make games that challenge our skills. They have to provide us with the potential to improve, as improving at something is a feeling that humans crave. If the bosses were just there not serving any purpose, it wouldn't be as engaging to the player. The Souls series lets players know that the way to success is always in their own hands. There is never any hand-holding, which encourages players to think creatively to overcome the diverse challenges they may face on the road. This leads to players having to figure things out on their own and, overall, makes for a more satisfying challenge. Another thing that FromSoftware does that makes their games so appealing is how they tell their stories. They use a method called environmental storytelling. Environmental storytelling is an indirect way to tell a story. The games don't hand-feed pieces of lore and story, but instead strikes a balance of exploration and understanding the setting. In the opening moments of Elden Ring, you see a vast castle, the Erd Tree, and ruins all around. Every place you can see, the player eventually goes there. This type of game design immerses the player in the world. The creator, Hidetaka Miyazaki, adopts the principle of ambiguity in his own work. He avoids tiresome infodumps or clunky dialogue, He presents the player with hints at a wider narrative. The true story of the Souls games is left up for interpretation, with bits and pieces of lore scattered across the world. You start out as a small fry in this massive world, but as the game progresses you become a pillar of the story. In Elden Ring you start out as this lowly tarnished, but as you progress through the game you slowly rise through the ranks and become a hero. This approach, accompanied by environmental storytelling, really defines the series and keeps players coming back. It makes the player feel like a part of a rich and detailed world with some massive lore that has to be unearthed. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Consider subscribing and dropping a like, and comment down below another topic you want to see.